Good evening, everybody. We left off on page 254. Chapter 10. Justin! Justin heard his name called and turned around as he walked down the hall of the crime lab toward his office. He stopped when he saw it was Tillman. "Sir," he greeted. "Is Nikki in yet?" "I don't know. I just got in." "Rental car company just reported a missing car," he told Justin. "I did a satellite search for it and tracked the GPS signal. It shut off after a certain point in Hanover Park." "That's pretty far out," Justin said, not really wanting another case right now. He needed to work on his leads for Kerry. "Not out of our jurisdiction. We can hover there in 30 minutes. I already sent search teams from local PD offices. They aren't finding anything above ground. You know what that means. One of us is going diving." Justin frowned. "Sir, it's not that I don't want to find the missing car. It could very well be a crime scene. But I really need to work on some current leads." "This won't take too long, Justin. The rental car company can't track down the man they rented the car to. Neither can missing persons. He could be in the car, whether it's underwater or not, and that means our crime scene has potential for getting contaminated and being useless unless we get there soon. Come on, find Nikki. We leave in a few minutes." Justin sighed as Tillman walked away. Did he have any idea how much work they all had to do? In 10 minutes, Nikki and Justin were well on their way to the Hanover Park area. The rescue officers reported that their helicopter couldn't spot the car anywhere, and so they had started searching nearby lakes. Sonar sensors picked up a very large object in Mallard Lake, and so Tillman ordered that whatever it was should be pulled out. Justin was truly astonished to see the green rental car being hauled out with chains on a huge hovering rescue vehicle. He wasn't expecting to find it this quickly. He was even more surprised to see a body sitting in the front seat once the car was on the ground. "All right, let's start swabbing. Nikki called Sarah and Greg. We'll need them to get this done faster," Justin ordered. "And get Hans up here." Tillman took out his CSI kit and started work. When they were done with the outside of the car, they had to cut it open to get the body out. The accident avoidance programming had obviously failed, and Nikki commented, "I smell a lawsuit in this car." "I smell something else. Phew," Justin said, grimacing. "DBs tend to smell, especially when they've been underwater a while," Tillman stated the obvious. He turned his head and pointed to the path. "Looks like the rest of the team's here." Justin nodded. About time. It would go much faster now. Sarah and Greg got out of one car. Hans exited the ME van, carrying his own kit. The three walked over, and Hans whistled. "DB plus car. You guys got the full package on this one," he said. "Let's find out how long our friend was underwater. Can I touch him?" "1 second. A few more samples." "Be careful. These guys can pop," Tillman warned. Justin looked up and stared at Tillman for a second. Did the lieutenant think they had all gotten out of the academy yesterday? He looked back down at what he was doing without comment. After Nikki and Justin were done, they stepped back and let Hans examine their body. Justin looked at Sarah and Greg. "Rental car company apparently couldn't find their car or the car they rented it to. What was his name?" he asked Tillman. "Vladimir Chekin," Tillman said. Justin nodded. "So we're looking for ID." Hans pulled a wallet out of the DB's back pocket and opened it. "Well, unless Vladimir stole Peyton's credit card," he said, holding up the card for the team to see, "which is starting to look likely since he has this other fake ID here. This guy is not Vladimir Chekin." Justin nearly stood at attention at the mention of one of their leads, Peyton. "What's his ID say?" Greg asked quickly. He had done a bit of homework on Peyton and knew a few of his IDs. "Rico Lupin. Guy kind of looks like him," Hans commented, handing the ID, wallet, and card to Greg with a gloved hand. "You can have the evidence. I need to examine the body." Greg nodded and took the items. He bagged them and put them in his kit. "I'll take a look at this when I get back to the lab. Rico Lupin is one of Peyton's aliases." He peered over Hans's shoulder. "He's a little too bloated to make a facial ID, but he does sort of look like Peyton. Same color hair, he's got a beard. What color are his eyes?" "Hang on," Hans said, retracting the temperature scanner from over the DB's abdomen. He was checking the liver temperature. He very carefully opened one of the man's eyes and said, "Brown." Greg nodded. "Matches Peyton's. We'll see if we can fingerprint him once we drain him. If nothing else, we'll take a DNA sample." "I'm going to check the rest of the car," Sarah said, moving around to the trunk. "Just be careful you don't jostle it too much," Hans warned her. "Don't worry," she told him. Tillman walked around to stand near Nikki, Greg, and Justin. So we're probably looking at Peyton. And the car was rented to Vladimir, so he picked Peyton up after he led Kerry to the warehouse. Justin frowned. He didn't like the way Tillman had said that. First of all, he had assumed something that they had no evidence of. And secondly, it was clear Tillman didn't approve of Kerry's rescue operation. But had she not been there, Connor would have died, and everything in a 3-block radius would have been incinerated. The bomb would have taken their evidence with it. He held his peace, though. It wasn't his place to correct his temporary boss's tone. That's probably right, but we'll need some evidence to prove it, Nikki said carefully. She could tell Justin wasn't happy, and eyed him for a moment. Tillman nodded. All right, let's finish processing this car and get it to the lab. Hans, tell us when you're done with the DB. Do you have a time of death? Liver temp tells us he probably died last night around 18:30. Seatbelt slit. This wasn't a suicide. He was trying to get out. The knife's under the front seat. Want to wait till we're back at the lab to pick that up? No, I'll get it now, Nikki said. How you doing on that trunk, Sarah? Nothing in here. Not that I can see anyway. We'll look for a trace at the lab. Nikki nodded and moved around to the front seat to pick up the knife and stick it in the evidence bag. Tillman looked at Justin. Not a suicide. And you thought this was a waste of time, he said with a small smile. Justin said nothing, but shook his head almost in disbelief as he resumed processing the car. It was only moments later that Tillman's cell phone rang. He stepped away from the crime scene, removed his gloves, and withdrew the phone. The CID displayed Anderson's face and name. He answered it, and the holographic image of the FBI agent popped up as soon as he flipped the screen out. Agent Anderson, what can I do for you? He asked. Lieutenant Tillman, I have unfortunate news. Ted Davidson has escaped custody. The suspect in Chuck Butler's murder? Anderson raised an eyebrow. Yes, that's the one, he said, and looked over his shoulder and then back at the phone. I've already informed Lieutenant O'Malley that he could pose a risk to her family. You should expect a call from Captain Wall soon regarding handing jurisdiction over to us. Considering he was instrumental in a terrorist initiative and had a direct contact with Portez and Warren, there's a strong possibility that he knows how to build these bombs. Tillman nodded. I don't have any problem with you taking jurisdiction, he said almost enthusiastically. Just please coordinate with my people so we're aware of when the threat has passed and when he's back in custody. I understand Lieutenant O'Malley wants to interrogate him. She believes he may have information that could prove instrumental in exposing Smith, and as of now, we've lost all our other leads. Anderson nodded and said, I'll keep you informed. Thanks. Talk to you later. Tillman hung up, and Justin approached. What's going on? Ted Davidson escaped, the lieutenant broke the news to him, and Justin's expression told him that he was less than pleased. Don't worry, the FBI is taking jurisdiction and heading up the manhunt. They'll get him. I appreciate your optimism. I hope you're right, Justin said. He sighed. Meanwhile, the only lead we have left is in this car. Then let's get going on it. We'll read more tomorrow.